Hello and welcome to my tutorial. In this video I'll be talking about drawing the lips and the teeth and how to draw them in a realistic way. I'll also be talking briefly about shading and certain things you should consider when you're shading. Our first step is the outline, and when you're doing this it's important that you use a very light pencil, a 2 or an HB pencil, and also try your best to get it as natural looking as possible, or if you're drawing from an image, draw exactly what you see from the image, and if necessary use a grid. After you've completed your outline, our next step is to shade, and before you shade there's some important things you should consider, certain parts that make up the shadow, and our first is the core shadow. And this is really the greatest area of the shadow. It's also the part of the shadow which really creates the form of the object we're drawing. And the next is the cast shadow, which is really the darkest shadow. It's the shadow that's being cast by the upper lip right onto the lower. And the next is the midtone, and this is really the greatest area of the shadow. It's kinda like the skin tone or the middle tone or the neutral tone. And the next is reflected light, and this is one of the lightest of the parts of the shadow, and it's actually light reflecting right onto the surface of your object you're drawing. And the next is the highlight, probably the most easiest to identify. It's just light speckled right into the surface of the object you're drawing. On our first layer we're going to be trying to find our midtone. This is just the sort of color or tone that makes up most of the lip. And do this with a 2B pencil, just cross hatch it. Do this on the bottom and lower. And then we're going to be finding our core shadows. We're going to do this with a 3B or a 4B pencil. Just try to mark in the creases and the areas that sort of form the lip. Also, when you're doing the teeth, don't actually put any pencil on the actual teeth, but put in the dark areas around the teeth. And those dark areas are going to be your core shadow, your cast shadow. And also around the mouth, do a light crosshatch with a 2B pencil. And then after you've done all that, go in with your blending stump and blend in everything. Blend in all your shadows into the rest of the lip. And also when you're doing the teeth, make sure you have a highlight that is completely white and blend in around that highlight. Also blend in the dark areas which you drew in around the teeth. And these are really your casted shadows, which are being cast by the lips. And with your eraser go in and lighten if you have to. And also blend in the area surrounding the mouth. And then after you've done that, go in with a 4B or a 6B and darken the shadows that you blended, and also the creases and folds which are going to form your lips. Do this with a very dark pencil, like a 6B. This is really the final stages of your core shadows and your darkest shadows, and you're going to blend those in once again. And then with a kneaded eraser or a click eraser, go in and start doing your reflections and your highlights. When you're going in and doing your highlights, you're going to have to constantly go over and over with your eraser, because it won't happen that easily when you're doing it in the dark areas. When you're shading, you want to remember that opposite of the darkest area there's always a light area. So for instance, right now with my eraser I'm drawing a light area around the darker areas. And this is going to really push it out and make it more 3D and give it more depth. Also, make sure you go in with a dark pencil and shade in the dark areas around the lips too. So this is going to give it more form. And that area, I don't know what it's called, but it's above the lip. Also, as an important shadow, which is under the bottom area of the lip, and like I said, include opposite of the dark area, light area. And once again on the teeth, with a dark pencil, draw around the lips and then blend into the teeth. And what's really going to give your teeth a realistic look is if you have really dark shadows, then opposite of that a light shadow and a very strong highlight. And you can see I'm blending in the shadows, and realize that the teeth are not exactly completely white. They have a shade. That's a sort of in between. It's not too dark. It's sort of like a 2B. And also go in with your eraser and draw on a white outline sort of around your teeth. That's gonna really give it form and make it stick out and make it look more realistic. And the final stage, you're going to go back, do your highlights, and with your eraser try to make your midtones stand out more and your reflected light stand out more. And blend in all your shadows. Try to give it more smooth texture. And here's my completed drawing. You can see I've included all those shading terms that I discussed. The highlights, the reflected light, the cast shadow, the core shadow. I've also really blended in my graphite to give out that smooth texture. And also with the teeth, really light areas and really dark shadows. It's all going to give you a really realistic look. And I hope this video helped, and thank you for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to comment.